Hello, everyone, and welcome to OpenCV Live. I'm Dr. Satya Malik. Today, we welcome Jody Burchell from the newest OpenCV Silver member organization, JetBrains, to tell us all about the awesome things that PyCharm, the official Python IDE for OpenCV, can do to make your life easier and your code better. We'll be seeing how to install PyCharm and use it to follow a tutorial on DETR from a familiar website. You may know about it. But first, as always, with me is Phil Nelson. He's the director of content and creative at OpenCV. Phil produces the show, and if anything goes wrong, it's his fault. Hi, Phil.
Yes, hello out there, everybody. It's me, it's PHILLIP, and I am here to remind you of a few things we do every single episode of this show. The co-host with the co-most, the second banana who is second to none. I'm also your plus one and only. It's Mr. Nelson. If you're nasty, but you, my dear friends, can just call me plain old Phil. One of the things we do on this show every single week is a special giveaway to you in the audience. Stay tuned. Later on in the episode, our generous hosts, or our generous guests have decided to give us three, count them three, free PyCharm license keys for, I think, what are they good for 1 year, Jody? Is that the case? Yes, for
Yeah,
1 year. So
indeed.
three of those coming off later in the episode. Stay tuned for trivia. We really appreciate the gifts there from our generous sponsors at JetBrains and PyCharm. We're also taking questions from you in the audience, and as the late, great Satoru Iwata would have said, we will do our best to answer them directly. Please use the chat system wherever you're watching us here on the internet, or the Zoom Q&A button down there at the bottom of the screen, and we will do our absolute best to get your questions answered during the show. If you do not get your question answered and you still would like an answer, you can send an email to newsletter@opencv.org, and we will do our best to get that answered for you. Before we get started, let's do a little bit of housekeeping here. Satya, can you tell the folks a little bit about OpenCV and why it's important to support, and a little shout out to our current sponsors?
Yes, so OpenCV is the biggest computer vision library in the world. It is downloaded more than 20 million times a month. And it is supported by some large companies and some small companies. And it is also supported by people like yourself who donate money directly. So these are our members currently. We have 3 tiers of membership, gold, silver, and bronze. So if you're a small company, you can still, donate money to OpenCV through the bronze membership, which is only $6,000 a year. And then we have the silver membership around $30,000 a year, and gold membership at $100,000 a year, right? So please, if your organization uses OpenCV, talk to your manager and see if they can arrange a membership for OpenCV, right? So usually many large companies have this fund allocated or separated for supporting open source libraries, etc. So
not only that, OpenCV is a 501 nonprofit organization in the United States, which means if you're a U.S. company, those donations are very likely tax deductible. We're coming up on the end of the year. Maybe you owe the government some money. Maybe you'd like to give it to us instead.
Awesome.
You can also join us on GitHub. You can sponsor us on GitHub. Go to github.com/sponsor/OpenCV for a pittance of $9 a month American. You can get your name here on the OpenCV sponsor page. Quick shout out to our 8 current sponsors: DJ Greenwood, Rotus Labs, our old friends at RoboFlow, Nick Libertini, Blue Jay, Praveen, Jesus Anya, and Victor V. Thank you all so much for your support. OpenCV also has official merchandise, and I have a very special image to share with you all here today. We got one, folks. We got one. We have a dog wearing an OpenCV bandana.
Oh, right.
Just share the screen here, and we will say hi. A beautiful photograph of Violeta, a Chihuahua from Tijuana, Mexico. Hello, Violeta. Nice. Excellent. What a good girl. So if you want to see your dog here on OpenCV Live, go buy something from the OpenCV shop. We got pet bandanas. Take a picture, send it in here, and we'll give a big thank you, and your dog will become internet famous amongst a very specific section of the populace. Thanks to Natalia De La Rosa for the photograph. Having said that, Doc.
All right, so Jody, it is a pleasure to have JetBrains as the OpenCV Silver member, and it's a pleasure to have PyCharm as the official IDE for OpenCV Python. And please take it from here. Please introduce yourself in a few short sentences, and then we can dive into the tutorial.
Sure. So first, I want to say, we are so thrilled that we're the official IDE of this incredibly important computer vision project. And yeah, we're so happy that we can support yet another open source project, because it is actually super important in Python, and especially as machine learning grows and becomes more profitable, that we don't forget where all this code comes from. So yeah, we're just super, super happy to be involved. So yeah, hi, I'm Jody. I am a developer advocate in data science at JetBrains. I'm a data scientist by training, and my PhD is in psychology. So a little bit of a journey there. And yeah, today I'm really just going to be taking the audience through, what PyCharm is. Maybe you've never heard of it. It's possible. How we can download it, and then just some tips and tricks for getting the best performance out of it. So I will just share my screen now.
So we, before signing up, we did a user survey to find out that, okay, PyCharm is indeed very, very popular among our audience. And that's when we decided, okay, it's a good deal for everybody.
Awesome. Yeah. We were super happy when you reached out. So yeah, it's a very nice arrangement for both of us. Yes. So let's introduce PyCharm anyway, just in case people haven't heard of it. So PyCharm is actually two things. There's PyCharm Professional, which is our paid version. I'm going to be showing PyCharm Professional today. It's the one with all the bells and whistles. But we do also have a open source project called PyCharm Community. So for a lot of you, maybe this might have been your introduction to PyCharm. This is actually an open source project. You can go and fork it and make your own PyCharm. Can't use the name. That's the limitation. But if you want to improve on the code base, you can go ahead. So just to kind of get us orientated, I've taken us to the PyCharm data science landing page, and I just want to go over some of the sort of high level features we have for data science. So obviously,
drop this link into the chat as well for all the folks watching.
Perfect.
Out there.
Thank you. If you need me to drop anything into the chat as well, just ping me. So we have obviously support for Jupyter. I'm going to be showing you a bit of that today. We obviously also have a lot of support for Python, because the whole IDE is orientated towards making your Python development a lot smoother. And another thing I'm going to be showing you today is one of our newest features, which is an integration with Hugging Face. And if you've never heard of Hugging Face, yes, you're going to like these features. They're so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. We work directly with the Hugging Face team to actually implement these. So it's been like a lot of hard work on both sides.
Yeah, and they work, they are so fast at everything. So it's amazing. Yeah.
They are amazing.
I don't know how they do it.
They're also like, everyone I've met is so nice.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, like,
suspicious.
No, they are actually. My interactions with them have also been very, everybody's really nice.
All right, we're gonna have to get them as a sponsor now.
Yeah. Because, it's meant to be. You'll need to be together. So some other features which I'm not going to be showing you today, but I do also quite like. We have really amazing support for working with databases. So the SQL support in particular there's really, really nice functionality for working with data frames at the moment. So pandas and polars. So you can do things like, you can see it here in the little GIF. You can see summary statistics of tabular data. It's a little bit less relevant to computer vision, obviously. And you can also do graphing straight off data frames, which you can see here as well. And then we also have a number of remote integrations, the newest of which is Databricks. So if you're using that, that is one of our newest features. So let's talk about downloading PyCharm. So we're going to be working with PyCharm Professional, as I said. There is a free 30-day license. So if you want to follow along at home with this tutorial, we're going to be sharing all the links. So it is a cross-platform IDE. So basically, you can download it for whatever OS you're working on. If you don't want to download it directly, the way that we all use PyCharm and all of our other IDs is actually through another application we have called Toolbox.
Hmm.
So you can see my toolbox here. Basically, it
That's
allows you
great
to,
because I was going to ask you about this.
yes, yes. So Toolbox is super cool because it not only allows you to install multiple IDEs, have the updates automatically pushed to you rather than having to reinstall it manually, but not a lot of people know this, but we have a program called the Early Access Program, the EAP.
Oh,
And yeah, and so this is like basically a beta testing program where you can download like development versions, stable development versions of the IDEs with features that they're going to have in the next release. So we only have 3 releases a year, but we have something like 10 EAP releases a year, depending on the IDE. And
got
so if you want to install that, you can just go to other versions. Obviously, I've got a few internal versions that you can't download, but this EAP, you can download it and just have a play. So just be warned, it is beta, so there will be some instability. But
Right.
if you are someone who loves to live on the cutting edge, EAP program might be for you.
Yeah, I didn't know about
So
this. This is cool.
yeah. I'm actually surprised because I do a lot of conferences as part of my job, and I'm surprised how few people know about it. And obviously, it's mutually beneficial. Like we love getting the feedback, and you get a free IDE, and if you can handle a few bugs, you get to play with the cutting edge.
Right.
Cool. So next thing to talk about is, I know we have quite a lot of students in the audience. JetBrains actually offers free educational licenses for all of our IDEs, so not just PyCharm. So if you are a student, you basically can contact us through this program. Also, if you're an educator, you can contact us and you'll be given a free license as long as you're a student, and it will be the complete version, no kind of restrictions. So if you are paying for this, please do not reach out to us and you'll be able to get a free license.
That's awesome.
So,
In fact,
yeah.
our contract with JetBrains also enables our students at OpenCV University to get a
Yep.
license. So we are rolling that out. But yeah,
Mhm.
people will hear from us very soon. People who have bought our courses, they will have access to the licenses as well.
Amazing. Yeah. And we do support like a number of like non-university based educators as well. So yeah, it's amazing to hear that you've joined that program. Cool. Any questions so far before I plow into demoing?
I think everyone's just raring to go. Go for it.
Let's go then. Okay. So I did my smooth transition. This one went well. Let's see how the others go. So
Excellent.
this is PyCharm, obviously. And I'm just opening it up here with all my files closed so I can just draw your attention to all of these lovely tool windows we have around the outside. So I'm not going to go into all of these, but what I really want to highlight is when you get PyCharm Pro, it is integrated out of the box. So it comes with pretty much everything that we think you might need in order to do smooth development, smooth data science, smooth computer vision in Python. So you have obviously a terminal, very vital. You have you have version control. So our version control support is really good. Obviously, this is just a little demo project, so just have one commit. But when you have multiple commits, you can see all the branching, it's all visualized. You can roll back, you can do cherry picking, you can do all that sort of complicated Git stuff that always does my head in, and the IDE makes it a lot easier. And we also have a tool window for looking at all the Python packages you have installed and managing those. So you can see here, if I look up OpenCV Python, you can see that that's already installed in my environment. So there's not much here in terms of what we can see. But as you can see, I had transformers up before, and there's a lot more information there. So we can have a look through that as part of the IDE. So you can see the IDE is already sort of getting you settled into the environment and trying to prevent you having to navigate out to the browser to find information. And I'm going to be showing you more examples of that as we go through. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is everyone's favorite topic when it comes to Python, which is dependency management.
Right.
Which, yes. So
Yes,
I love Python.
everybody loves it so much.
I I've been a data scientist my whole life. Not my whole life. No, that would be a bit ambitious, but like most of my career. And really, I'm just like a scripter. I just do R, do Python, whatever. But I had a little taste of Java and it horrified me slightly, but the dependency management was so good. Like everything just worked. It was so stable. And I was like, oh, now I understand why everyone complains about this in Python. Like, there are better ways to do things.
Right.
Hours and
Yes.
hours of my life I would like back.
Oh, God. So we know this is painful. So one of the kind of core ideas of PyCharm is that from the start, you should have, you know, a stable, reliable interpreter associated with your project. That means when you come back to your project, you're not going to be in a bunch of grief. So let's go up here and add local interpreter. I already have an interpreter associated with this project, so I'm not going to create a new one, but I just want to sort of talk you through how you might create one. So what you can see from the start is that PyCharm is trying to encourage you not to use the system interpreter and install packages globally, which is best practice. When I first started, I used to do this, and then I quickly learned why it's a bad idea when you have like 3 different conflicting versions of TensorFlow or something and nothing works. So, yes. So you can see that you're basically being shepherded to one of the, types of virtual environments that you can create. Do we need to review what virtual environments are, or do you think everyone in the audience is pretty familiar with them?
People may be familiar, but just a few lines would be really good.
Yeah. So the general idea is like when you install Python on your computer, you can then start installing packages, right? So you might want to install pandas or OpenCV or what have you. But the problem is as you start progressing, the lifespan of your computer goes on, different Python versions will come out and different versions of those packages will come out. And you're maybe going to upgrade some of those, but what you're going to have living in your global environment, the same one that you use for every Python project, is those packages you've installed before. So what virtual environments offer is a sort of isolated, I don't want to say container because it means something kind of specific, but it is sort of an isolated environment or container that means that the packages you install for one project are isolated from the others. And what's also great about them is you can just blow them up and destroy them, and they're really cheap, and you can basically just be like, oh, I screwed up my dependencies, I can start again from scratch. So they're a lot cleaner, they're a lot better practice, and it means that if, say, you are trying to move from experiment to production, say if you're working as a data scientist or an ML engineer or something, it's much more reproducible for someone who needs to take over your project. So yeah, we really try to establish this as like the thing you should be doing for each of your projects and associate a virtual environment with each project. So yeah, so you can see basically through this creation menu, you can pick through any of the different versions of Python you have installed on your computer. And you can also, if you prefer, use Conda, which is another way of managing dependencies and managing interpreters in Python. If you just install that on your computer, you can create a new environment at a click, again, pick from different Python versions and create new virtual environments out of the box. So what I now have here is a virtual environment that I created, and it has all of my dependencies installed and completely isolated from everything else, and also permanently associated with this project unless I decide to delete it. So yeah, I think this is really neat. And this, I'm now so used to doing this in PyCharm that if I need to do it from scratch, from terminal, I really struggle a bit and I get into a bit of a mess. So I can tell you this definitely does make your life easier once you get used to it.
Right, and the visual, you can easily go and click a few buttons and you can visually see all the dependencies and everything that is installed. That's very convenient.
Exactly. And you can uninstall them, you can upgrade versions. And if actually you clone a project which already has a requirements file, say, it will like prompt you and say, I can install this into a new interpreter. So if you want me to do that, I can do it.
Right.
So yeah. Any questions before we dive into the demo?
I do not see any here currently, no.
So one
Excellent.
suggestion for people, there are a lot of people, they, directly edit the, they don't want to use the IDE sometimes, and they say, okay, I'm just going
Mhm.
to work with the files, etc.
Mhm.
As the project, I mean, that's fine if you want to, work on a small project, but as the project gets larger, right, it becomes very, very efficient to use an IDE where you don't have to think a lot, everything is in the right place. So
Mhm.
that behavior, it needs changing when you move to a larger project, right? And it makes life convenient. I was kind of old school before, where I would not, I would just use my terminal and VI to write a lot of code. But
Yeah.
but then, when I started using IDs, I felt that, okay, I was missing out on things.
And this is an interesting thing. So, like, I'm not going to tell you, you have to use that. You have to use, PyCharm. The kind of thing is tools are there for your needs, right? And it's exactly as you said, as your needs get more complex, as the projects you work on get bigger, you probably will find life a lot easier if you have a tool that can automate a lot of stuff for you.
Right.
So I just worked with like straight Jupyter notebooks for like 5 or so years, and they were
Right.
fine
Right.
until I had to start working on complex projects that multiple people were working on, and then it was just like couldn't
Right.
keep up anymore.
And part of the hesitation was that older IDs like Microsoft Visual Studios, they used to be so complex, right? For
Mm.
writing
Very
a
heavy
small
on
piece.
system resources too, like
Yeah,
before code came out, was as
yeah.
a rewrite.
So yeah, so that was the trauma, that prevented me from switching to IDs for a long time. But I think now they are really very useful. They're quick, and they're useful, very useful.
Yeah, and something I found even with, say, small projects, I can't go back because I'm so used to, I'm going to show you a bit of it, but like the code completion and having the quick documentation and everything
Yeah,
just there in the notebook. And you kind of take it for granted, and then you forget until you go back, and then you're like, oh, there's nothing
right,
wrong with Jupyter. It's just you have to do more work.
right.
All right. So speaking of Jupyter, let us jump over. So what we have here is our project window, just where all our files are. You can see here's our virtual environment that I created. And let's go ahead and open up this Jupyter notebook. So we are going to be working with a tutorial from Learn OpenCV.
All right,
I
thank
think I
So
you.
know that guy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I kind of recognize that name somehow.
Yeah, it looks very familiar. Phil, did you want to share the link to this in case people want to follow along?
Yes, I will. Can you drop that for me, and I will do that.
I will do that indeed. So let me, gosh, we have this. I can actually do that. I can post that straight in the chat.
All right.
Okay,
Awesome,
perfect.
thanks.
No problem. Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to be doing some object recognition with photos. If we get time, we will also do video because that's also part of this tutorial, but we may not. We'll just see how we go for time. So first thing to explain is you can see here, this is a Jupyter notebook. Looks pretty familiar, but you're probably seeing, as I hover around it, there's a few things that look a little bit different. And what you're going to see is there's a lot of stuff built in under the hood to just make it a lot quicker and more efficient to work with Jupyter, but it's still the same Jupyter that you know and love. All right. So we're going to be working with a model called, it's DETR. Is that the pronunciation? I was
Yeah,
saying DETR.
that's
Yeah.
that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
being that you're in Germany, I think Dieter is more.
Oh, yeah. Herr DETR. So yeah, DETR, did we want to talk a little bit about this model, or do we kind of think people would be familiar enough with it?
I think a couple sentences.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about this one, Satya? Because I think this is probably more your
It's
area of expertise than mine.
Yeah, it's an object detection model, right? Transformer based that is, the thing is that if you look at classical computer vision, it started with all the hog features kind of thing, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
you have you basically first extracted the features, which
Mm-hmm.
were, and then you had a classifier in the end, and then you had the detector, right? So pedestrian detector, when the hog, actually the face detector, when it first came out, right, that was a very big deal,
Mm-hmm.
and it was based on Viola and Jones, hog cascade features. And then we realized that, okay, if you want to go to other kinds of features, right, let's say for pedestrian detector, the hog cascade did not work very well, so they used other features. And then came convolutional neural networks, and then we moved from, we didn't have to handcraft these features, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now the detection became easier. Even in convolutional neural network, there were two phases where first um, it was based on a two-stage detector. We extracted the features using the convolutional layers, and then we moved on to a single shot detector like YOLO. Now there were some innovations in the NLP world where transformer architecture came along, where when you're looking at something, the context of the thing becomes very important for detection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
for example, you could think about in word completion, right? When you're trying to complete a word, if you have a large context, right, then you can complete the word better, right? Let's say you're reading a story about a serial killer, and the story has all the information, right? So to predict who's the serial killer, if you have a lot of context, then you can predict it better, right? The larger the context. And that was very difficult because, there was a large context, and transformers changed that. There's an easy way. The architecture ensures that you are able to have a large context in a very efficient manner. Now that is NLP, but then the same ideas have started coming to vision. How can you use that kind of a context, those transformer architecture for vision? And this is one of the models in that category, one of the popular ones.
Yeah, I was super fascinated by this because my area is NLP. So obviously I've seen the transformer stuff in that context. But the fact you can use attention and the sort of the positional encoding to understand how objects glue together, like how the pixels kind of group. I was like, that's so clever. Like, of course, it's sort of a similar idea because you're just talking about position.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, the way context can be useful is, let's say there is a lot of occlusion in an image, right? And you're able to see only part. Let's say you're only able to see part of my hat and the face, etc. But if there is context that I'm sitting behind a laptop, so it might have been occluding. So those kinds of things, right? That is why context becomes very important. That if you're learning from the surrounding, right, then you can predict what's inside, even if it isn't occluded, because you know what's in the surrounding.
Yeah. It's the kind of developments in the last 5 years have been phenomenal. We're quite lucky to be working, I think, in these fields right now. Yeah.
That's true.
Cool. So now that we've sort of made everyone familiar with the model, do we have any questions before I keep going?
No, everyone's following along.
All right. Oh, great. My mouse decided to die. No problems. I will just do the one from the laptop. Okay, so basically what we're going to be doing is getting the DETR model from Hugging Face Hub. So I'm just going to give a quick introduction to Hugging Face Hub. So we're talking about Hugging Face earlier, but what they are basically a company, but also a company with a massive open source branch, which has made it sort of their mission statement to get together what we would call foundational models in computer vision, in audio, and in NLP. So basically, they host these models. You can download them for free. And they have Python packaging, which makes it really easy to work with these models. So we are going to have a look at the first of our Hugging Face integrations. So if I right click in a cell in Jupyter, or I can do it anywhere in a script as well if I'm working in Python, you will now see that insert Hugging Face model is part of the context menu. So if I click on that, it basically opens up the exact same model window, I guess, or component of the Hugging Face hub that you'll see on the website. So if I click back over here, you can see this is exactly the same that you're getting, but it's in the IDE. So because, yeah, I know, it's really cool. I like this so much. So what we want to do.
It's not cached, right? It is getting it real time.
Exactly, exactly. So let's say I search. There you go. So, so yeah, basically, if I say go to object detection, it's going to show me, ordered by like by default, the models that basically are most liked on Hugging Face. You can also see the date that they were last updated. You can also sort it by these other categories if you want to do that. And then you can also apply other filters such as the tag or the license. So now that we have this, what we have here is what Hugging Face calls the model card. So the model card is basically a description of the model. And with the popular models, they will often include a little piece of code that will get you started. So if you want to just start playing around with models, this is the first of my live demos, Brave live demo. We're not going to use this because that just gives us a little bit of boilerplate code that's the same for every model. If we want to kind of get into the weeds, it's better to take the code from the model card. So what we're going to do is copy that. We're going to paste it and we're just going to run it. And it's just going to take a couple of seconds because I did pre-download this model. And what you can see is giving us these predictions. So let's see what this image is of. So we are going to type image, execute that. And we have these beautiful cats, which I'm guessing is a pretty common test image. And we can see that it's done a good job. So it's told us we have a remote and a remote. Yeah, good. It's told us that there's a couch. Good. And it's told us that there's 2 cats. And indeed there are. But let's try this with another one. Why not? Why not? Let's go. So what we're going to do is go back to insert Hugging Face model. We're going to go back to object detection. And you can do this with anything. Like this is just object detection. This works pretty much with any category. So let's try this model. Again, we just copy that code.
So many decades of config files I didn't need to edit by hand or flashing in front of my eyes right now.
I know. Regrets. We've all had a few. So we run this one. It's actually the same image. Spoiler alert. I did peek ahead and check that these 2 models worked. But we can see that this one has told us we have 3 remotes, remote, and 2 cats. So it hasn't worked quite as well. It looks like maybe there's a duplicate in there. So yeah, this is basically the first of the Hugging Face features. The second one that I want to show you is we have this specific Hugging Face tool window. And what this shows you is all of the models that you have downloaded from Hugging Face. So the first time that I interacted with each of these models, you didn't see it because I've already interacted with them. They're downloaded from Hugging Face Hub to your computer. And through this, you can keep track of all the models you have. You can see there's the DETR ResNet and there's the yellow model. And I can actually just delete those if I'm getting too many, because some of these models, like this BART model, they're quite large. And so they can actually start taking up quite a lot of disk space if you don't keep an eye on that. So there's the Hugging Face integrations. I like these so much. And I'm super proud that we got this kind of off the ground. And just really happy to be working with them because, again, it's really important to be supporting the open source side of things, particularly in the current climate of AI. So,
oh, you mean to say that things are not open anymore?
Well.
I've heard that some of these companies are deceptively named.
But they are called open, isn't it?
Well. Maybe, yeah. Mm?
I still think we should send a cease and desist, Satya.
All right.
You were here first. Damn it. All right. So let's start working.
One quick question,
Oh,
since we interrupted
sure.
you here, Jody. We've got Venkat in the chat here. Are these features in the community edition and the educational edition, and are these available everywhere?
No. So basically, to sort of explain the distinction, the educational edition is not a separate edition. So it is basically PyCharm Pro, but you get a free license. The community edition, unfortunately, doesn't have most of our data science features. So yeah, community, unfortunately, is more limited to working with scripts and code completion, the more sort of basic feature set. But yeah, the Pro has these features right now.
All right.
Cool. All right. So let's now get into the tutorial proper. And whenever I do stuff like this, I like to work with something that the model probably wasn't trained on. So I got a bunch of my happy snaps from my holidays. And what you can see is here's a picture of two absolute units that I saw at a cat cafe in France.
Couple of chonkers.
They are total chonker. They're like, basically everyone was just leaving bits of food for them. And I'm like, yeah, it's no great mystery how you got so fat. They were, apart from, the look on this guy's face, they were actually very sweet. So, okay, so first thing first, we're just going to load in this image, have a look at it. And we're going to do the exact same thing we just did with the trial code that we got off the model card. So I'm just going to talk you through briefly what this code does. This is from the transformers package on Hugging Face. And what we need to do is load in a model architecture, and we also need to load in a model checkpoint. So basically the model has been pre-trained and we're just loading in those two components so they can work together. What we then need to do is convert our our image into like something the model can work with, and it works with tensors. So we're just converting it into a vector. And then we pass it through the model and we need to process what it spits out. So what it's going to spit out is for a bunch of objects it's identified, the label it's predicted. It's also going to spit out the probability of it being that thing, and it's going to spit out the coordinates of the bounding box. So that's exactly what we get here. We get the label, we get the probability, and we get the coordinates of that bounding box. And you can see that we've set the threshold at 0.9. So it's stuff that it's pretty certain that it's found, but we're going to play with that a little bit later and see what happens when we mess around with that. So you can see that in this image, it's detected the two cats, hard to miss. And it's also picked up a chair. So that's fair, right? That seems like reasonable. So the problem is it's a bit hard to work out if this is working because we don't really know what the bounding boxes are capturing. So we can use OpenCV to plot these. Yes, so finally to OpenCV. So going through the tutorial, first things first, we're going to read in the image again. And by default, it's imported in blue, green,
BGR.
red.
Yeah.
Yes, BGR. So this is why it looks a bit wacky, but we're going to convert it before we pass it through the model. So in the tutorial, they've created a number of very nice functions to help the bounding boxes look nice. So the first function basically makes sure that the font size on the label is sized correctly in sort of proportion. And then these two make sure that for each of the labels that are predicted, there's a separate color, and that color is associated with every object that belongs to the same label. So these are very nice little convenience functions that were done. I also want to say in this tutorial, the code was very clear. I actually gave up, not gave up, I stopped reading the tutorial and just went through the code because it was so easy to understand. So yeah, shout out to this tutorial.
Living the dream.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so here I'm just going to take a pause and talk a little bit about the Python functionality in PyCharm. So the first thing I want to show is a little bit of code completion. So the code completion is really good in PyCharm. It's quite good at sort of anticipating what you're going to type. So what we're going to do is type in image. So we're going to import the image again. We're going to type in CV. Yep, it detects that we want OpenCV. And then it works out that I want to read in an image. So it's doing pretty good kind of contextual analysis of what I'm likely to type. And now it's already predicted that it takes a file name because that's the argument that it takes, because it does all this sort of inspections of the code and sort of, connects what the arguments are once you've imported methods.
Right.
And what's very nice is once I start typing this, it starts predicting the path as well. So I don't need to go and copy that. Yeah, it's so useful. It really saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so once I run that, it works. It's just the same image I imported earlier. So next thing we need to do is import this in RGB. But oh no, there was something else I wanted to show first. I wanted to show code inspections. So you can probably see that at certain points, it's actually giving you a little squiggly underline. And what this means is that PyCharm has kind of gone through. If it's red, it's telling you there's an actual error, like you are going to have a problem. But if it's yellow, it's kind of suggesting it's a warning, like this is maybe not best practice, or you've done something that may make your code give you problems down the line. So what's happened here is because I've defined image RGB as a global outside of this variable, and then I've defined it again inside this function, that could potentially cause some confusion. So you may want to rename the element, and then it will give you the kind of refactoring tooling for doing that.
That is really good. That is really good.
There's even, I've got even more. So we even have NLP powered typo correction. So it basically goes, So it goes through the code and the markdown, and it's like, hey, maybe these are not chonky. I wrote that about the cats. Sorry, that is real English. Thank you. But yeah, it'll basically go through and detect all of that. So yeah. So I think that was just checking my notes. Was that everything I wanted to show here? Cool. Yeah. So let's get on with the tutorial. So as promised, we convert that image that we've read in to RGB. So that's in the correct format for the model. And again, like before, we process it and convert it to tensors. So this function sort of bundles everything up. So it reads in the image, does that processing, and then it prepares the model for inference. So basically you can pass things through to get predictions. It passes everything through, and just like I showed you with, when we were just doing it for the one image, it does that post-processing so it can extract the labels, the probabilities, and the bounding boxes. And then here is where the OpenCV magic happens. So for each of those boxes, labels, and scores for each object that it's detected, it works out the coordinates and the size of the box. It then scales the font so it'll be the right size using that nice convenience function that they wrote in the tutorial. It gets the color for the label, and then it plots it. And it does that for every single object that it detects. So let's now apply it. Oh, shoot. Right. This is why I shouldn't have run it. Now I get demo effect. All right, what I'm going to do is be a good girl and delete these because I suspect I've got a variable name that I've used twice, and YOLO has reused something that I wanted to use in DETR. Yay, now it worked. So now we can see those bounding boxes that it predicted. Can see, yeah, nice cat here, and weirdly, it detected this chair, but not this chair. So it's not wrong, but it's an interesting choice. So I've also put together a collection.
Just the threshold is too high. Then if had it been lower, it would get. But it's still surprising that would be caught as a chair and the other one would not.
I know, it's weird, right?
The importance of the bounding boxes, so we can actually visualize, because like, oh yes, there is a chair here, it must be working perfectly.
I have another example later on where we can see also the importance of thresholds and visual debugging. But just to sort of round off the tutorial, and I think we will skip the video tutorial, but please feel free to go through that on the Learn OpenCV code because it's pretty cool. So you can see we've got London, and it's done a very nice job sort of identifying the traffic and the clock on Big Ben. You can see we've got this little scene of a cafe. So we've got our wine glasses, the bowl. It's missed this, but we will come back to this. And it got the dining table. Got our cats again. We've got this sort of canal scene. It's been a little hit and miss. It might be a little busy, or maybe the objects are too small, but it's identified quite a few of the people. It missed this boat, but it got some in the background. In this one, it did well with these ones in the foreground. You've got your boats, you've got your people, and then this one is just a boat and this one's just a person, which, 50-50, I guess. And then this very crowded market scene, I think it did very well, actually. It got this bottle, got all these people, and then individual handbags. Now, I did want to see what happens when you play around with the probability threshold. And I thought this one was an interesting candidate because it missed quite a few things. So here's the original 0.9. And then let's see a 0.7. So it thinks that this bag is a chair, which has problems with chairs, it seems. And my favorite is it thinks this is a sandwich. And then if you lower it to 0.5, there's just so many sandwiches. So that really made me laugh. But I think it's also a good illustration.
It's getting a little Diogenesis here.
Yeah.
Behold.
But frankly, who cares?
Yeah. I'm always down for a dad joke. Well done. I like to kind of do this too, because I think it's important to see where these models break, because it's very impressive, right? But they're still limited. Like, I think I read that this model only has 91 categories. So maybe this is the closest to a sandwich it has, because
right.
Yeah. All right. So just want to pause. Do we want to do questions? Do you want to do the giveaway? Because I just have a few more features to show, but not too many.
Yeah,
go ahead.
That would be a good time.
We'll do our giveaway now, and just quickly. So go ahead and unshare your screen.
Oops.
This is a good one, folks. So just a quick reminder, today we are giving away 3 one-year PyCharm licenses for free from our guest here today. Thanks so much to JetBrains for providing our prizes. The way this works is I'm going to ask a question based on the presentation so far today, and the first person to answer each one of these 3 questions in the Zoom chat will win a PyCharm license for 1 year. If you have won in the last couple of months for an OpenCV course or some of the hardware we gave away earlier, please don't answer and let someone else have a chance to win. I'm looking at you, Partha. So earlier, I'll start off easy here. So we talked a little bit about this model here in our tutorial, DETR. What is this an abbreviation for? All right, Miguel Oliveira, before I even got the words out of my mouth, Miguel, please send one email to phil@opencv.org. We will get you your license. So now, get ready for the second question, folks. Earlier, we set up a Python environment. What version of Python was that environment running? Oof, bingo, bada bing, hokey smokes, bullwinkle. We got Juan Carcamo is our first one there for the second question. Juan Carcamo, please send one email to phil@opencv.org, phil@opencv.org. I'll also drop it in the chat. Okay, that's 2 gone. We've got one more. We also discussed a third-party environment and dependency management tool you can use in PyCharm. It's very popular these days. What is it called? Oh, bingo. Wow, man, you were all just, everyone's paying attention today, Jody.
Wow.
I'm glad I haven't bored you.
Our correct answer there was Conda, Slavko Medvedev. The answer we're looking for was Conda. Please send one email to phil@opencv.org, and we'll make sure that you get your free PyCharm license for 1 year. Super awesome. Man, you were just bang, bang, bang. I love it when people are paying attention, but I gotta make up better questions. Jody, let's if you want to continue, let's go ahead and see the rest of the tutorial here.
Cool. So let's sort of round out with a couple of, I think, probably just little random bag of things that I like. This is what
Yes,
this section is.
sounds great.
So we've been working in a Jupyter notebook. I've talked a little bit about going to production. And if you have ever had to do this, like say you've had to be the data scientist handing your code over to an engineer, you will know they do not love it when you give them Jupyter notebooks because they often can't
That's
even
true.
open them because they're not even using PyCharm. But anyway, so basically what they want is a script, right? And what I would do in the past is I would manually copy and paste everything from the script, and it was a pain in the butt. But what you can do is you can right click, go to convert to Python file on your
Very nice.
Jupyter file, and it does it instantly. So let's open that up and have a look. And what you can see is we don't just have one execution point, we have multiple, which is a bit strange, right? Like, what is going on here? Well, what's happened is this little separator that was automatically imported as part of creating the file, and you can just type this yourself and it works in scripts as well, has now instructed PyCharm to treat this as a Jupyter-like cell block.
Right.
So if I run this, it's no longer running against a static shell. It's running against an interactive Jupyter console.
Right.
And so this is a full IPython console running here. So if I say now run this and I run this, it is going to give me those predictions that we saw earlier. And I can interact with all of these. If I have data frames, we can display them on the side. If I have graphs, we can also display those. And we're continuing to work on the type of objects that can be rendered as part of this mode. But basically, this for me is such a nice middle ground between you are working in Jupyter and you're used to that because most data scientists are.
Right.
And you have to move to a script where everything is basically executed all at once. And maybe you don't want that. Maybe there's some very time consuming code that you want to kind of keep in memory. So yeah, I like this feature so much. And I actually find myself using it quite a bit when I've gotten a bit too messy with notebooks. And sometimes I can have a little bit of the strictness that comes with scripts, but that flexibility, yeah.
It's funny
Cool.
that it happened in my, there was a time in my career where I used to say, who actually trains their models using Jupyter Notebook, right? And then no, because and then I went to my team and I asked, who are you guys using Jupyter Notebook for training models? I mean, for little simple demo code, I can understand. Everybody was using Jupyter Notebook except for me.
I would have been ashamed to say it at one point. I guess I'm not anymore, but I think every production model I've ever built was in Jupyter. And it was literally at the point where I had to hand it over where I was like, okay, I put it in Python script now.
Right.
But you are shaped by the tools that you were born into. Yes.
Yes, there is no shame here in this dojo. We accept everyone.
Yes, Python is love, and it accepts us all. Cool. And then the last thing I want to show, and I won't dwell on it because it is an additional paid subscription above PyCharm, but we do also have our own AI assistant. So you can subscribe to this, and I can just show you quickly the details of that. So if you go to jetbrains.com/AI, this is one of our newest products. But basically, we've integrated it into the IDE completely. So, of course, you have chat. So let's say you want to say, how do I convert an image from BGR to RGB in OpenCV? It will look up that code for you. It will explain it to you. So basically, it will tell you why. And then let's just pop over to our notebook again. And we can insert.
Answer here is if some company would like to give us several $1 million. as a donation.
Yes,
We
yes.
we may consider changing it to RGB.
Hold everyone at ransom.
Let's make a paid version of OpenCV with just this one change.
Yes, yes.
Sold. It's a subscription, $5 a month.
That's right. It's the model everyone's going for now. What's more important to you, a Twitch streamer or this? So yeah, if you click above the code that it generates, you can insert it wherever your caret is. So if we run that, oh, actually, we're not going to run that because it's not a real image.
Right.
But let's say I want to, I don't know, reformat it. I don't think that it's the most kind of, maintainable code. It can also suggest a refactoring for me. So obviously it's decided to, wow, it really decided to bundle it up into a lot of different functions. It's normally not quite that,
right.
not quite that aggressive. It's normally just 2 functions, but non-deterministic demo, we just go with it.
Right.
Brave live demo.
Brave live demo. And then the final thing I want to show you in terms of the AI integrations, but you can see that there's quite a few that you can play with, is let's say we want to commit our 2 files. By the way, this is our commit tool window. It's quite nice. You can get it to analyze the diff between your last commit and what we just added, and basically get it to explain it to in natural language. And if you think that that's a bit too verbose, you can give it a different prompt. You can get it to generate these messages in different languages, depending on what the models support. But they support pretty much any language where there's going to be a lot of training data. So yeah, that is PyCharm, and I am finished with 1 minute to go.
All right. That's
Just
excellent.
Parallel parked it right in there. I love that.
Yes.
We will. You can go ahead and unshare your screen here, I guess, and we'll
Oh
wrap
yes,
up.
of course.
Yes, thanks so much, Jody. This was a lot of fun, and great tutorial there. Thanks a lot to the Learn OpenCV team for doing a lot of the legwork there. I learned a bunch about the PyCharm ecosystem, and I myself am switching to PyCharm from honestly just random
BI?
Jupyter notebooks and writing by hand. I talk about this on the show all the time. I'm a 41-year-old man that learned to write code 30 years ago. I'm all about text files, so I'm learning, I'm growing, and PyCharm is helping me do that, and I hope it will help you do that as well. Coming up next week, we've got, should be a fascinating episode. Adam Rodnitsky from Tangram Vision will join us again for an episode about the future of robotics regulations, a really quickly moving field, and something that directly affects the computer vision industry in large part. Having said that, thanks so much, Jody. Satya, you want to take us home?
Well, thank you so much, Jody, and it was a pleasure to have you here. And we are so excited about our partnership with JetBrains and PyCharm. So we'll hear more about people using it from our community more and more, our students as well. So very excited about it. Thank you.
It was an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much. This is such a fun show, so I had a blast, and thank you so much to everyone in the audience.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Phil, for organizing this show. Nothing went wrong today.
Yeah, I mean, so far I could still accidentally flip the table. It's been a rough week for a lot of us out there, folks, and sometimes all we have is each other. I hope you can take care of yourself out there, and I hope you can take care of somebody else. There's a lot of folks that need it right now. We will see you next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. Thursday Pacific time. Adios.